Hi, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Paul.
We want to welcome you to The Fungus Among Us.
That's right. This episode, we are going to be talking about the episode Please Hold to My Hand. And this is actually going to be part one of a two-parter. Isn't that right, Kelly?
Yes, for this podcast episode, we are going to approach this as part one of two on Henry and Sam.
Yeah, we really felt like, especially this first one, Please Hold to My Hand, was so much about setup, and it ended on such a cliffhanger that it kind of was hard to talk about just by itself.
Yes, exactly. So I'm ready to dive right in.
Let's do it.
Well, I'll tell you why I'm excited for this, and you have to know why by now, everybody. I wanted more Joel and Ellie. I feel like, okay, we're finally getting that.
That's right. This time, I was thinking about that as I was watching the episode for the first time on Sunday night. I was like, oh, yeah, Kelly finally got her wish. Plenty of Joel and Ellie here.
Still, it's a deviation from the game, but it's still within like the scope of the story. And now they're having to face these villains that are chasing after Joel and Ellie, similar to the game. However, this time there's like a face to this group that
Yeah.
has overthrown the QZ in Kansas City, and where we're kind of now starting to hear about our beloved characters from the game, Henry and Sam.
I was kind of confused on what all was going on here. So Melanie Linsky, what's her character's name?
I'm immediately just going to drop this. I love Melanie Linsky. She is one of my most favorite actors, and she plays the role of Kathleen.
Kathleen, that's what it is. Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
the
so
leader of
she's
this group.
right. And that I think probably the biggest departure from the game, because most of the character scenes we get with Joel and Ellie have been translated from the game in some way. The action scene kind of has, but in the game we never go, we never meet the people, the sort of behind this group of hunters that are chasing Joel and Ellie through this section. They're just kind of a bunch of random assholes that you have to fight. And here they're a group with a leadership structure and a plan and a dark secret hidden in their basement, apparently.
I shared a similar experience where I wasn't quite sure of this relationship to Kathleen and Henry, but watching it a second time, I think Henry must have done something to Kathleen's brother, and somehow the doctor plays a role in that he knows Henry.
Right. It's all well, so yeah, I was also watching this closely the second time, and it seems like Kathleen's brother was beaten to death by Fedra, and he got narked out by a bunch of people, and she's trying to hunt down all the people who narked him out to Fedra. And the doctor is one, and Henry apparently is one. He told Fedra where her brother was, and they beat her brother to death. And so she wants vengeance for that, I guess, and she's desperate to find Henry. And there's so much that's still up in the air. Like in this,
Oh,
I kind of have
100%.
preconceptions from the game, but like, who is Henry? What did he do? Why does Kathleen want him so bad? What are her priorities? Also, I felt like it was part one of a longer thing, and so there's a lot set up that I'm just kind of hanging, like waiting for the next one.
What I found really interesting, Neil Druckmann notes that he loves humanizing villains, and he does such a great job at it. For me, I feel like maybe, yeah, right, we don't quite understand Kathleen yet, but clearly she is a respected leader of this group. I really found it interesting. I don't know if you knew this, but Jeffrey Pierce, who plays like her, what would you call him?
I don't know. He
Jeffrey
like her
Pierce.
second in command guy, it seemed like, or her right hand man.
Did you know that he played Tommy in the game?
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
I know, right? I was like, that voice too. It sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see that they were able to again bring another actor from the game into the show, just like they did with
Yeah.
Marlene.
Yeah, I love that. I'm excited to see more of his character too. I was really interested in his character because he seemed to have some misgivings. I mean, there's this subtle thing I was noticing where people around Kathleen seem to have misgivings about her. you know, like when
Oh, do you have an example?
well, yeah, the first one is when she goes in and shoots the doctor, and the guy who's at the guard outside the doctor's cell gives this look like, what the fuck? Because it's like totally unnecessary. you know, like she's just shooting the doctor basically because he apparently helped narc out her brother to Fedra, and she's pissed off about it. And at first he's like, "You can't kill me, I'm your doctor." And then when she realizes he can't help any of the people who just got injured because like they're too far gone, she's like, "Oh fuck it, I'm gonna kill him." And then the guy outside the cell's looking at her like, "What?" And then like when later when her buddy, her right hand man, that guy we were just talking about, Jeffrey Pierce, is showing her the floor that's all messed up. Apparently, probably there's some monstrous infection thing coming through. And she's like, "We're not going to tell anybody about this yet. We're going to focus on hunting down Henry, and then we'll worry about this." And he's kind of giving her a look like, "What? Like finding
Yeah, no,
Henry is more
people
important
seem
than
to
this?"
I see what you're saying. People just kinda seem to, like, go along with her, but I mean, it's like, she must have done something for this group, when they took over. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
to have that kind
she's
of
in
respect.
charge for sure. Yeah, clearly she's earned her leadership role, but I'm suspecting that she's a character who's is blinded by her desire for vengeance.
Oh, yeah, and many flaws, many flaws. What the hell was in that basement, Paul? Are those about to be bloaters?
That's kinda what I think. I mean, just
Like,
because in
what
that
is
early
happening?
trailer. Yeah, I know, like, what is coming well, I also wonder if this ties into the whole thing of, like, the fungal networks underground, you know? The
Yeah.
fungus being among all of them, and, like, maybe this is
The
some kind of
fungus is
a
among us.
that's right, exactly, and, like, maybe this is some kind of fungal tendril that's been chasing them. I'm with you on the bloater thing, though, just because, like, there was that shot in the trailer of the bloater crawling out of a hole in the ground. I immediately thought of that when I saw.
For those of you that are not familiar with bloaters, it's like an advanced form of a clicker. So like a super infected
Yeah, they get super,
zombie,
super
and it's
big,
gross.
yeah,
It's
and it
gross.
was yeah, and they were referenced in episode 2 because Ellie had that line of like, "Oh, are there really, like, huge ones that throw spores at you?" Because that's what the bloaters do.
Oh, yeah. And then, like, Tess was like, "I hope not," I think. I wanna jump into something that you and I have previously discussed. Ellie crawling through the spaces and, like, the gameplay.
Yeah, I was talking in the first episode about how I was hoping to see, like, video game mechanics in the show, and, yeah, we got that in this episode, scenes where Ellie has to crawl into a place that's too small for Joel to get into and then unblock a door. It
Mhm.
happens twice in this episode.
Speaking, of the game, I am more and more falling in love with these versions of Ellie and Joel. I think what's so fantastic about bringing this show to life is you are able to experience a more like complex, layered version of these characters and like see those moments that you don't really get in the game. I recall there was some feedback, maybe not so positive, that like Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey were kind of instructed to not play the game before auditioning. And I am finally beginning to see why they did that. The creators and the director's purpose for it. There's moments with Ellie where I'm like, that's Bella's take on that is a little different than Ellie in the game. I have no qualms with it.
I know what you mean. And I think that really came into focus for me in this episode too. Like, I think in this episode I really kind of got my mind around sort of the different choices that were made with the characters of Joel and Ellie in the show versus the game, and sort of how they are and how their relationship develops and how they are in it. Because in the game, they're both a couple of hard edged survivors that, you know, I think a lot of their relationship in the game is about them mutually agreeing not to connect in certain ways, and kind of bouncing off each other and keeping each other at arm's length. And in the show, I think that they're both a little softer and they're both much more eager to connect in their own ways.
Yeah, you're seeing like their vulnerabilities in so many points throughout the story and throughout this particular episode.
Well, I mean, I have an example that I think for me is one of the biggest, like this one event, just comparing this one event between the game and the show is a really good illustration of the difference. And that's when Ellie shoots the guy that's attacking Joel. Because in the game, when that happens, he immediately gets up and is all gruff and sort of chides her for
Mhm.
almost blowing his head off. And then she yells at him for not being more supportive of her when she's just killed her first person and she might have feelings about it. And also for not being grateful that she saved his life. And they kind of fight about it, and then they both get sulky. And it is a really interesting choice. In this one, it's totally different. Ellie
In the show.
has already taken a life. Yeah, in the show, Ellie has already
Yeah.
taken a life, we learn, and she's less upset about that. She still is has some questions about it. Joel is just plagued with guilt that she had to do that, and he feels like he failed her, and so Joel is already
Yeah.
like really thinking of her as this kid. He hates that she has to be exposed to these violent things. And so this is a much more vulnerable moment for him than it was in the game. And I think ultimately for her too, because when he apologizes to her, it really penetrates, and she doesn't say anything, but she starts crying. And it just
Yeah.
is the beginning of these characters really already like sort of being vulnerable to each other in a way that it took a lot longer for them to get there in the game.
It did. After that car crash and, Joel having that shootout with these villains, I thought, what a cool, interesting choice to have her take out the knife. I was expecting, just like in the game, she's always like fighting off villains before she gets a gun in the game with the knife. And it immediately just cuts to she's going to use the gun to shoot this person that's trying to kill Joel. I mean, this man is like pleading for his life. You have Ellie, in the other room listening, and Joel executes him. And she's just got to wipe her tears and pull it together to get Joel in that other room with her. And I just, for some reason, I felt the most disturbed in my reactions to that scene.
I hear you. I think that was the intent. I think that
Yeah.
the creators wanted us to feel that way. I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm cold hearted. Maybe I'm emotionally detached. Maybe I'm unrealistic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's true, guys.
my shut up. But my reaction was, I was like, well, yeah. I mean, it's a bummer. Like, I get that this kid's a human being, but like these people did just try to kill them. I mean, what what does this kid expect?
I know, but it was hard. He said he couldn't walk, Oh god, I think again, it's just the way that they decided to show this scene, and Ellie's listening behind the wall that Joel eventually executes him. It's like it's still disturbing, but yeah.
And yeah, no, it is. And he uses the knife. He uses the knife that he just took off the kid, which is also kind of fucked up. You can tell from the sound effect. You know what I thought was interesting about that moment is that the show seemed to very specifically be showing us that Ellie considered the man's pleas, but ultimately, without saying it, decided that she agreed with Joel that he needed to die. You know, you can imagine a version of that scene where Ellie says at least one word to question whether or not they need to kill him. But she already knows. She already knows and I thought that was such an interesting choice that she doesn't question it at all. She just goes in the other room and waits for Joel to do it.
So I feel like there's a duality to Ellie that we are seeing again as viewers. I've mentioned this before that maybe Joel is not quite seeing yet. When she says it's not her first time, I am kind of curious, like, how so? I mean, it can't be just that simple where she's just killed somebody before. Like she might be expressing some feelings of like guilt for not having saved someone in a situation. Like I don't know, we don't know, cuz again, this is another deviation from the game. But again, she's showing a lot of layers to her like words versus her actions. So,
Yeah. Well, who she could be talking about.
I
She
mean,
could
I
be
know who
talking
she could
about
be talking about.
a certain character that we haven't met yet from a certain DLC expansion.
Exactly.
Yes.
um
Okay, well, because I have a thought that on sort of the duality of Ellie that I was thinking about in this episode, which is that I think she has all these moments where she is so much a kid. She's filled with
mhm.
wonder and mirth and joy and
Yeah.
youthfulness. And then also these other moments where she's a hardened survivor who has no qualms about doing what needs to be done, and she's very tough. She's, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, not respectful of authority, and she seems to hold both. And I feel like that's a testament to her strength. Like in some ways, she's even stronger than Joel. There's the part
Yeah.
late in the episode where he says something like her ability to hold on to that sort of youthful joy in spite of the world she's in and the stuff she's seen and experienced. That to me is like a testament to her strength. There's the part where he's like you're a little kid, like you shouldn't have to deal with this kind of stuff, and she's like, what, does it get easier when you're older or something? And he's just like, no."
Sure doesn't.
Right, exactly. And, like, to me, that
I
was,
get you,
like
hun.
that was a very wise line from her, and it really revealed
Yeah.
something about her core, I thought.
Very wise question, indeed. Yeah. This could sound silly, but I mean, I think that's why we all love these characters so much is we can find pieces of ourselves in them. And I think as you have seen, I carry a sense of humor in very dark times. And so like I'm
That's
really getting
true,
a kick
yeah.
out of Ellie's.
Some of the best jokes I've ever heard you make were literally in life or death situations.
Well, okay, let's, scale it back here.
I
Oh,
mean,
good
look, I love it.
times.
I mean, I think that that's, I
You
like,
have
if I
loved my life or death situations?
I love the ability to find humor in any situation. I think it's
Yeah,
important, you know?
for sure. It makes me think like if we're talking about like humor in a dark situation, my dad and his friends, they lost someone in their group and they wanted to be cremated. And so my dad and his friends were sitting around, the ashes, and somebody in the group said, well, at least he earned it because his ashes were
Yeah.
in an urn. Oh, Jesus. All
Oh,
right.
okay, I get it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, no, I understand. Okay, I get it now. That's good stuff. That's great. Ellie would love that joke.
Yeah, speaking of puns, we gotta circle back to that. They have been hilarious. I was so thrilled when she opened up that book. You could tell in the beginning of the episode, he's getting a kick out of it for sure.
Even yeah, it's funny. You see him over the course of this episode go from pretending he doesn't think the jokes are funny to admitting that he thinks they're funny. I love Pedro Pascal's performance. Is one of the first scenes where she tells him a joke. I think it was I don't remember which joke it was, but you see Joel process it, realize she's telling the joke, and then he kind of looks off into space for a second like he's thinking about the pun, and you see him get it, and then he kind of like you don't see him smile, but you see him like
He
kind of decide
registers
not to
it.
smile. Yeah, he
Yeah.
registers it, and you can kind of see that he's like trying not to show that he's amused. It's very subtle.
When they end up camping out that first night, there's again there's so many funny moments, when he's making coffee and like she says smells like shit. But I'm thinking of the night that they camped out. Ellie's starting to question the world around her, worried about the infected coming, but Joel makes it very clear it's not the infected, it's people. And as they're falling asleep, you can start to see that Ellie is scared because she asks Joel, like, do we need to worry about these people? And he was like, no. They fall asleep, and you can see later on, after Ellie has fallen asleep, that Joel is on the lookout.
Yeah.
Like, he can't not protect. I feel like they've kind of done it in each episode where things come full circle. So that night that they camp out and she tells a joke as they're falling asleep, it also ends with them, falling asleep and she pulls out another joke that I mean just has me in hysterics. Do you remember the last
To
joke she shares?
the one from the end of the episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's the diarrhea one. Runs in your genes. I know that you're a huge fan of diarrhea humor.
I'm really not.
I mean,
um,
okay, you can say that, but all I know is that every time I've ever made a diarrhea joke, you've laughed, and you've made a lot of diarrhea jokes, more than anyone I know except
you know what's
possibly
so
Brian.
cool, everybody? I'm editing this out. No.
I really think you should leave
um,
it in. I think the viewers want to know about your penchant for diarrhea humor. I mean, come on,
okay,
that's
you know
fun.
what? We're done. We're done. We're done. We're done. We're done. Another thing about the game that I'm, like, finding myself think about in the show is it's so easy to, like, as you're playing Joel, to, like, fight off 12 clickers, and they're running for, like, what can seem a very long time for a very long distance through, like, a forest, And to see Joel in the show struggle with climbing the stairs, I am a little bit like, "Come on, man. Yeah, like, keep it up." I'm like, "This is getting too real," you know?
Yeah, those stairs kicked his ass, but that's just real. I mean, the dude, he's 57. I love that. That was like, I love that moment where he calls her out.
56.
He's like, didn't he say 57?
I thought he was 56. 20 years later, 36. 56.
I think no, but I think the line was. I think he said the line that he was 57. Either way, he's in his mid
Yeah,
50s,
yeah.
and I love the part where she's like ribbing him about getting tired. He's like I'm 57, you little shit.
So, yeah, I mean, I could see how ultimately this episode it was like a setup for you, but for me, it was finally like we're diving into Ellie and Joel on their journey.
For sure. And I think that, yeah, like all the stuff about Henry and Kathleen and the people hunting them, like all that is still up in the air. But I feel like this episode was like a self contained, very coherent little arc of like Joel and Ellie really cementing. Like, I feel like what that was the arc of this episode was their relationship moving to family, moving
Friends.
from, friends or family. I don't know. I mean, I think it's family and they just don't know it yet. But either way, yeah, it's like they
Yeah.
definitely, there was a big transition in their relationship in this episode. And that was kind of the arc.
Yeah, so that was really important for me. I was so eager to see it happen soon, and I'm glad it did in this episode. It really sets it up for whatever is about to come next. I think that's for sure because we have Melanie Linsky playing Kathleen, like this ruthless person who's clearly, just going to shoot someone, even her doctor. I mean, they could be in some serious trouble.
Yeah, no, for sure. Wait,
So,
who's they? You mean Kathleen's people or
some
Joel and Ellie? Or really everybody's in
I
trouble?
guess everyone is in some serious trouble, but I think because they set up their relationship so well that it's going to make the stakes that much higher for what's to come with Kathleen.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You know what I think would be funny is if, like, in the next episode, one of Kathleen's people gets like a compound fracture or like appendicitis or something, and is like in really bad trouble, and they're just like, "We need a doctor," and she's like,
Um, whoops.
yeah, funny story."
And everyone just goes along with it, like you said. I am thrilled that we are introduced, albeit a very short introduction, to Henry and Sam. They certainly left an impact on me in the game. Very curious to see what they do with it in the show.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited for them. And, this was an episode where when it ended, I was like, what? I was like, that was the end. I thought I was only like halfway through it. So it was a testament to how just propulsive and engaging the storytelling was.
That's true. Because at the end of the show, you really get this release from Joel. Speaking of diarrhea. When
I told you she liked diarrhea jokes.
I think
You
we
can't
would be
resist.
great friends with Ellie. Um,
I think so too.
I just found it unique, I think similar to the last episode with Bill and Frank, how things sort of come full circle, where they kind of end where they begin. Joel and Ellie climb the stairs, they find a room to hide out in, and as they're falling asleep, Ellie, in this flat tone manner, says and delivers the diarrhea joke. And it just like gets to Joel. And I feel like for the first time in a long time for Joel, he's coming up for like oxygen. He's in the present. It's just so nice to see him laugh. And I was laughing too.
And there was something about in that moment where he's like, "I'm losing it," and Ellie's like, "Yeah, man, you really are." And then they both laugh at that. That just felt like there was so much in that moment that I felt was unspoken,
Oh, yeah.
sort of almost like she kind of understood that like, yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, this whole thing, like, was Ellie sort of intentionally trying to draw him out of his shell with the jokes in this episode? Like how yeah, I'm starting to wonder if this show's interpretation is that she has this awareness, sort of this instinctive awareness of how withdrawn and injured he is, and she's actively trying to coax him out, and then did at the end of the episode.
I am very curious to see how the show is going to unfold, especially now that Henry and Sam are in the picture. As always, we want to thank you for tuning in to The Fungus Among Us.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.